How much for baby?
I have read many of these let's not meet stories on Reddit, and I've always been lucky that I didn't need to write my own, until now. My wife and I welcomed our son Lucas, not his real name of course, 6 months ago. It's been a learning curve, and this having babies thing is not for the birds, but things are finally starting to go smoothly. He is finally sleeping through the night, and that nasty colic he had is gone. I am very lucky that I get to work from home. Even luckier, my wife owns her own business, photographer, and she is home whenever she's not shooting a wedding or at her studio. Most mornings we take a 6.5-mile walk, and Lucas is strapped into his baby carrier, and we take off. We usually make it around halfway before we need to stop to give the little man a bottle, so he will pass out and let us finish the walk in peace. So like usual, we are about halfway done with our walk and the baby starts cranking up for a massive squall. We usually normally stop at either a park or this nice fountain area with a coffee shop and grocery store attached. We both wanted coffee in the worst way, so while I sat with the baby, wife went into the coffee shop for our caffeine. I am slowly rocking Lucas as I feed him when I hear someone sit on the bench next to me. I smell her before I see her, a heavy cloying perfume. She's dolled up to the nines, an older woman, between her late 30s to 40s. She has that look that makes her look older than she probably is. What kind of baby is that? She inquires in a heavy Russian accent. I have a propensity for being a smartass, so I reply, "A baby?" "No, what kind? Boy? Girl?" she asks me as she starts smoothing out the romper we have on the baby. "He is a boy, 6 months old," I add, a little freaked out that this perfect stranger is touching my kid. "Looks healthy. How much he weigh?" she asks, trying to pull the baby to her to get a good look at him. Now I'm hoping that my wife will come out any second, but of course she's in line waiting for our cappuccinos. I think 18 pounds. He was 9 at birth. I ramble on, hoping she will just go away. Lucas is drifting off to sleep when she leans over and just snatches him out of my arms. "Ah, let me see, big boy. Big frame like Papa. You will be big boy, no?" Now I am pissed. I ask her for him back while I glance into the coffee shop. My wife is at the counter at this point. "Hand him over, now," I ask firmly, not to mention he is now awake and he is totally in that stranger danger stage, so he is pissed. She reluctantly hands him over. I try to calm him down, so at first I do not hear what she asks. "How much for baby?" I hear her the second time. "He's not for sale." I am incredulous, and thankfully I see my wife get our drinks and grab our napkins and creamer. "How much you want?" "I pay high price for baby." My wife finally comes out and sees the lady touching our kid. My wife is a total mama bear, so she gives the lady dagger eyes. So she gets up and before she goes, she looks at me and says, "You think about it, duh?" Then she walks away. I tell my wife everything, and of course she's as freaked out as me. Luckily, it's been a week and a half and we have yet to run into her again. So, crazy Russian lady who wanted to buy my kid? Let's never meet again. Edit. Just to clear some things up, we live in Canada, and there are a lot of Russian tourists that come through this part of Canada. We did alert the authorities, and no one had reported a woman prior to us calling asking to buy babies. However, today we found out at the supermarket this takes place, well, technically outside the market, that this woman was in the store last night and made a few families feel uncomfortable, following them around and touching the kids. Cops were called, but they let her off with a warning and she was kicked out of the store. Police are now aware of her, but unfortunately, unless she takes a baby or hurts someone, they can't do diddly squat to her. We still haven't run into her. Supposedly, according to the staff at the store, she lives nearby. So let's hope we don't run into her again. I won't ever hit a woman, as was suggested to me by a few readers, but my wife will not hesitate to knock a bitch out. And trust me, my wife is scary when she's angry.
Rest stop horror.
This isn't my story, it's my dad's, and it happened about 4 years ago while he was on a business trip for work. He is still freaked out about it to this day, and so he told me I could post it for him here on Reddit. My dad works for a large printing company and they had completed an overnight rush job for a business. My dad got tasked with dropping the order off. It would take 8 hours each way to drop off the order, and he was going to take my mom as she's a retired teacher and he figured it would be nice to have someone to drive each way. However, the night before he was going to leave, my mom came down with the flu. He left early the next morning and promised my mom if he got tired, he would stop either at a restaurant or a rest stop. So he made it without incident to drop off the papers. It was about noon when he set off again and soon realized the traffic was horrible. My dad decided that he'd take the long way home and it would add an hour or two, but he feared it would take longer to wait in the traffic. He drove straight for a few hours until he realized he had to pee, and badly. My dad is a prostate cancer survivor, so needless to say, he pees a lot. Also, he was starting to get sleepy and figured he should pull over and maybe get a quick nap in. It was winter, so at 4:30 the sun was starting to set, and he noticed the rest stop ahead. He got out, called my mom to tell her he was stopping to stretch his legs and maybe catch a little nap, then headed to the bathrooms. Now the place was pretty much deserted. There was an old Chevy parked next to my dad, and there was an RV with a family packing up what was probably their dinner. He went in the bathroom and opened the first stall, and he was in there doing his business when he hears someone talking. He thinks at first that they are talking to him until he realizes that the person is A, on the phone, or B, talking to themselves. It's okay, it's going to be okay. We will just take another, and then we will bring it to mother. The man said to himself in a sing-songy voice. My dad said he sounded like he was young, between late teens to early 20s. Then, before my dad could say anything, while he zipped up his pants, starting to get a little freaked out, the guy screams and starts beating his head while screaming at himself in a woman's high falsetto. "You're a stupid boy, a stupid, stupid boy. Mother is very angry." At that, my dad runs out of the stall and he quickly opens the door and runs to his car. He locks the car door when he notices a skinny young man run out of the bathroom. He is looking for my dad and he sees him in his car. My dad had the car started and was backing up when the guy runs full tilt at him, screaming. My dad drove off. He was so shaken up by this, he pulled over in the next town over, at a diner, getting a coffee to go. He was paying for his coffee when the same Chevy pulls in. My dad grabs his coffee and hides his face looking at some knickknacks in the little gift shop. The kid walks in and goes up to the nice older cashier who my dad bought his coffee from, and he throws his arms around this woman and starts sobbing about how he's sorry, mother, and how he let another one get away. My dad heard enough. He quickly tossed his coffee he hadn't drunk yet as it was too hot and made his way slowly to his car. He got in and sped off. He didn't stop till he was safely home. To this day, my dad refuses to stop at rest stops. So, creepy rest stop Norman Bates and your mother, I hope my father or I never meet you again.
Deranged Intruder.
This happened a few years ago when I was still in high school, around sophomore year. After school every day, our group of friends, 4 of us, would go get something to eat and then walk back to our friend Todd's house. This was a routine for a few years by then and continued until the first one of us got our license. Anyways, we would get out of school around 3 and usually ended up back at Todd's by 4. This would leave us with about 2 hours before his parents got home, which we usually used for playing music really loud and sometimes smoking. So, needless to say, we were always in a rush to get back to his house so we'd have a good amount of time to party. This particular day, things went a bit different. We were going about our usual routine at the usual time. After getting tacos, we were on our way back to Todd's, which was maybe a 20-minute walk. The walk went as usual, and we arrived at his house about 4 o'clock. But as soon as we got to the front door of Todd's house, things got strange. First, we noticed his little plants and welcome mat had been moved around, but we kind of brushed it off without too much thought. After unlocking and opening the door, we noticed that there are muddy shoe prints scattered throughout the entry hall and living room. Now we are all getting a bit freaked out, 'cause that is not normal. But Todd doesn't really seem too freaked by it and says his dad must have come home from work early for some reason, and not to say anything stupid in case he hears. We all agree and start heading upstairs to Todd's room. The muddy footprints continue upstairs, but instead of leading to his parents' room, like we'd expected them to, they instead led to Todd's bathroom. Again, another sign that something wasn't right, and finally, this time Todd agreed. He walked up to the door slowly and said, "Dad, is that you? Is everything all right?" No response. So he asked again louder, "Dad, is everything all right?" Again, no response. But this time we heard movement from within the bathroom. We all just stood there for a good 10 seconds, not sure what to do, when Todd cracks open the door and peeks inside. He immediately pulls the door shut and says, "Let's go, let's go, let's go," and starts booking it down the stairs. After a second of disbelief and just standing there dumbfounded, it finally clicked, and I took off. I was the last one out the door, and as I got out, I realized that all 3 of them were still running away. This gave me the worst chill up my spine. I knew something was not right. Finally, I caught up with them at the end of his street and was freaking out. Todd was already on the phone with the cops telling them that there is an intruder in his home and giving them his information. The cops arrive within 5 minutes and we tell them what happened and that we don't know if he's still in there. So we tell the 2 cops where he was and they go in looking for him. Just as the 3rd policeman pulls up, the first 2 come walking out the front door, with a handcuffed homeless man. This man was very, very, very unkempt and appeared to be completely insane. He didn't say one real word as they walked him to the car, just this unintelligible, creepy gibberish. He growled at us as he was being put into the back seat and started spitting. So after some inspection, they found that he had entered from the guest room window downstairs, which didn't have a pathway but a planter directly outside of it, hence the mud. It must have gotten watered by the automatic sprinklers just minutes before he got there, because it was a muddy disaster inside. After about 40 minutes of talking with Todd's dad, the cops leave. His dad tells us that we did the right thing, but I could tell he was shaken up. We still continued our routine the next day, and eventually things got back to normal, though the first few weeks after were pretty scary. Now I know a lot of you will be thinking, this is just a sad story of a man without a home, and on some levels I agree. But this man wasn't just crazy, he was angry. And after hearing that he had a knife sitting next to him on the toilet, I'm not completely convinced of his innocence. I guess the police didn't want to freak us out or whatever, but we never even saw the knife. It was only after Todd's dad had told him later that day, and then he told us. The knife was not taken from Todd's kitchen either, which makes it that much creepier. It's possible that it was just his tool, or that it was just for his own protection or whatever. But regardless, not fucking cool. So likely deranged intruder, let's not meet again.